Okay, so if I remember correctly, the whole thing about May is that she dropped out of school and is moving back home to an abandoned like a Rust Belt town where it's like kind of dying. I know she used to be in a band with these two dudes who are gay and in love. One of them's a bear. Greg and Angus, that's right. The implication of there being non-sapient animals in games like these is always wild to me. Okay, so originally I was gonna play Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, but due to a lot of technical difficulties, I am playing Night in the Woods. I don't really have a plan on what to talk about because all of my stuff was about Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, but that's okay. We can improvise. The piece I read was Racing and Gender in the Game by Kishonna It talked a lot about how how women and minorities in games are portrayed often by stereotypes, and women are highly sexualized, while men of color tend to be hyper masculinized or emasculated, depending on what race they are or ethnicity. A lot of Asian men tend to be very emasculated in games, fall into the mono minority while Black and Indigenous men and Latino men tend to be hypersexualized, hypermasculine, all that sort of stuff. Women also tend to be hypersexualized. You can look at like the piece itself opened with Lara Croft and Tomb Raider and all that stuff. Apparently, also Lara Croft was supposed to be Brazilian, which I think would have been way cooler. But what do I know? And so then I kind of looked at I like off the top of my head made a list of like women who were main characters in games who are also hypersexualized. And like just off the top of my head, I thought of like 6 main characters who are women. So you got Lara Croft, you got Trish from Devil May Cry, you've got Chun Li from Street Fighter, you got Bayonetta, Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat, and Chell. And out of the 6 of those, Chell isn't hypersexualized because you don't even know Chell's a woman for most of the game, and you don't see her really ever. Bayonetta was written by a woman, and so there's like a kind of different dynamic when it comes to that there. Sonya Blade was so sexualized in Mortal Kombat that when Mortal Kombat 11 dropped, and she suddenly wasn't hypersexual anymore, that caused a huge stink within the Mortal Kombat community. It was bad. Actually, it was so bad that I wrote a piece on it. Chell from Portal. Then. And yeah, so the thing itself gets into like the idea of hegemonic masculinity, which is aka the patriarchy, really the same thing, and it affects men and women, like really people of all genders, negatively. So yeah, the reason I really wanted to talk about Spaceport Janitor is that it is literally the opposite of it. Like, it's not an escapist fantasy at all. It is the opposite of it. It is an anti-adventure game. It is a reverse power fantasy game. You play a very low-level service bot. Now, this game I think is going to be really interesting because you're really just playing this depressed college sophomore who came home to their small town and doesn't really have like a goal and never really like got over kind of growing up in this like teen mentality and hasn't been done since. I had this whole thing written down about how in video games, game developers have sort of reinvented the Madonna whore complex, which Freud, but you know. Um, Damn, that sucks. What did you do to your computer? What did you do to your computer? What did you do to your computer? Depression. Okay. Yeah, no. Accidentally reinvented the Madonna whore complex, aka, there was this, I don't remember if it was a movie or a show called Syrup in 2013, but there were basically, like, there's 4 types of women. You've got, the mother, the virgin, the sluts, and the bitches. And believe it or not, video games keep you doing that. Either Madonna whore or fridge wife. What more can you ask for? Yeah. There was like a game called Dead Island, where there was one character who was a black woman who was more powerful than everybody else, and they talked about it in this chapter. And basically, the whole thing was she had a move called Gender Wars that allowed her to do more damage to men. And in the code, when people went digging, apparently they called the move feminist whore because nobody took 2 seconds to be like, maybe we shouldn't call this that. No, everybody in there was like, hell yeah, that's hilarious, let's do it. And then the company was like, whoops, we see that in our old code. Uh, there was that. Our bad. Whoopsie. Like, nobody from development to coding to writing to designing to quality assurance to anybody before that went out stopped and said, maybe we shouldn't do this. Nobody. There are so many stages in video game development. The fact that that got through, like, it's not an accident. So it's cool to play a game where it's like, not that. Is he your little friend Greg's boyfriend? Why do all moms like talk about your friends like, oh, is that your little friend? Blah blah blah. What happened? It's not just like I was saying. It's not just AAA that this happens at. It's just mostly visible with AAA studios because they sell a lot of the games people play. Indie studios, a lot of them have like some of these same problems too. Like obviously, it's people. It's not just the studios themselves. It's a whole um, it's like a whole thing. So I don't remember what it was called here. Hegemonic masculinity or patriarchy, whatever you want to call it. Either way, it still all affects everybody's dynamics. And even like if you put women on the teams or on any sort of the design teams or in management or anything like that, like um, it still doesn't change unless we as like it takes the whole industry to shift its paradigms in order to actually like, make meaningful difference. Luckily, over the last couple of years, I've seen more games with complex, multidimensional, racial um, gender representation, um, but not. It's made a dent, but it's not everything, obviously. And there's still like tons of people yelling about how SJWs are like ruining their games and blah 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 blah. All the but for the most this is our night in the woods. I see. Oh, look at my little cursor. It's a pizza slice. But no, I've like I said, I've been seeing it. I love when you can play games inside of games. Like I said, I've seen it. It's been getting better. It hasn't been fantastic. There are games like Final Fantasy VII that got remade, and some of the stuff got better. Like for example, Tifa and Aerith aren't constantly bickering and fighting with each other the whole time. But Barrett's characterization as a black man still isn't like fantastic. You know, like some of his dialogue's better, but not all of it. So baby steps. Everything will get better all at once. I'm going to die. Oh, you can dash. I think one of the best ways we can fix the whole issue is if, as a market, like every time it's about voting with your dollar, and that's all well and good. For the most part, like sometimes it works, but then also people are very loud and about problems in games. But then like Cyberpunk 77 gets published, for example. So voting with your dollar helps a bit, but also people need to remember that they need to like actually like be vocally outspoken about certain things and not just settle because that's just how things are. It would be cool to like. It would be cool to see some real progress. Like we've seen some, but could be better, could be more. Like voting with your wallet only voting with your wallet only does so much, but supporting games. What is happening? Like voting with your wallet when people say it usually means like, oh, just don't buy this game, but that doesn't really mean because people are still gonna buy the game anyway. What voting with your wallet should be is I'm pressing B. Oh, hold B. I see. What voting with your wallet should mean is buy the games by small time producers that are actually going to initiate meaningful change. Like you got like Grongi Generation, which is a really cool game about colonization and climate change, but also big mechs, like stuff like that, or Night in the Woods, or Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, or blah 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 blah. Oh, hello. There's no way that just worked. I guess one hit wonder. Okay, like because theoretically everybody's like, oh, you can anybody can make a game, but the reason no, but the resources to make a game are what? I just tried to talk to that dude. Like people are like, oh, anybody can make a game, but anybody can't make a game because this industry is like incredibly gatekeeping still to this day. Like this industry gatekeeps and blacklists and harasses its developers until nobody feels safe or can make a game. Not to mention the resources it requires to make games that not everybody has the money or access to. Um, but there are starts at least like Apple Arcade is honestly like a great opening space for small developers to start doing things. I can't touch that. Okay. Um, Itch and Kickstarter are also cool places that people can start kind of like getting their stuff out there. The problem is when things don't get Kickstarted or don't get whatever. So it's hard to like. A lot of it comes down actually more to just exposure and how people can like it's exposure and getting your stuff in circulation and letting people know that your game's out there. But that's like really hard if you don't have the right network or the right tools or things like that. Social media is a big help these days, but it doesn't solve everything. Yeah. In chat, my friend Dan makes a really good point about like just making it so that games can be published. Like for example, some friends of mine, are making a game called Validate. It's dating sim. It's incredibly diverse. It is almost it's all people of color except for one character who is Italian. Um, One character who's Italian, but other than that, I died. Um, and it was extremely popular. Like it blew up on Kickstarter, but nobody will publish it. Like nobody will publish them, which is a tragedy because it's a very good game that a lot of people of color want. It's a game for queer people of color by queer people of color, and people want this game. But then there's a market for it, obviously, because its Kickstarter got blown out of the water. But nobody will publish it. They've been struggling to find a publisher for about a year now, which is a real shame because it's a good game. Like I played the demo, but the demo's out for free. You can download it on Itch, and it's a really good time. Um, but publishers are slacking. They're calling it unmarketable, although clearly it's not. And like there's games like Arcade Spirits that are out, so clearly, there's like Arcade Spirits is out, so clearly there's a market for games of that genre. And Dream Daddies was wildly popular. Like people love dating sims, people love visual novels, so there's no reason that this shouldn't be publishable. And yet here we are, good times. So yeah, so the industry just needs to be more accessible, really. But yeah, funny little cat game. It's a good time. It actually has a lot more. I feel like Night in the Woods has a lot more to do with community than anything else because it's all about a dying Rust Belt town, which is like what a small town like that looks like, and how the community is affected by these things. Yeah, no, the idea of marketability really does come down to can white men buy this, which is the like kind of like the locus of all of this stuff. Yeah, no, this game was on the list for like race, gender, and sexuality. But I feel like it would have been better for next week's unit, which is communities. Like, there's definitely lenses you can look at this game through, like from a trans or queer perspective. It's just also not like the locus of this game. Like, for example, Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor literally has a whole mechanic about gender. Whole thing about gender. Greg's my corner. I've seen this screenshot so many times. It makes me very emotional. Goodbye. Greg is really just out here, like, love him. Oh, we're just in it. Okay.